All right. So, Melanie, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast today. Before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, I would really love to welcome on board Melanie Warner. Melanie is one of the top media experts in the world. Melanie is a producer, international keynote speaker, a USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestselling author, and CEO of Defining Moments Press. She has coached thousands of subject matter experts on finding their purpose and monetizing their knowledge through writing books and being featured in the media. Melanie has owned magazines and newspapers for over 30 years. She is also a journalist who writes about business and has been featured in Entrepreneur, Fortune, Forbes, CNN, and many more. Melanie is an executive producer of the new TV show Recipe for Wellness, which airs in 250 million homes. Wow. She has been hired and endorsed by Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, and founders of Chicken Soup for the Soul, Mark Victor Hansen, and Jack Canfield. She has worked with companies, government organizations, and C-suite executives, celebrities, athletes, and authors, speaking coaches to harness and leverage the power of media to build their personal brand and create a lasting legacy. She helps experts, entrepreneurs write best-selling books and leverage it to elevate their brands and appear on TV, podcasts, and attract high-value clients and get speaking gigs and leave a lasting legacy using an amazing formula called the Book Me Method. Melanie is going to also share her amazing story today on how she's gone from a negative position of $3.6 million to a positive $4 million in 18 months. Just to give you a bit of context, guys, that's more than $8 million shift in 18 months. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure the listeners on this show are going to be super thrilled to hear your story today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love your group down under in Australia and joining you from California today. So thank you for the internet for allowing this to happen.
Yeah, exactly. The beautiful technology of the internet. Now, Melanie, thank you for joining us. I would like to start off by asking some questions, and I'm going to start with this question. Could you share a little bit about your journey in the media publishing world and how it's helped you shape you today?
Absolutely. So many years ago, when I was a teenager, I was 15 years old. I was living in Texas and I wanted a job. So I went into a radio station and the guy that interviewed me, his name was Mike Kniezel. And he said, now it's really important if you want this job, you can't have any kind of regional dialect whatsoever. And it made me laugh so hard. And I was like, this sounds like a fun job. I want to be on the radio. Like, who wouldn't? And I was a teenager. Well, it was my very first job interview and I got the job. And I worked on the radio. I was literally on live radio in high school for several years. And all my friends were out partying and I was working. And back then, we used to have to lock up the stations. Like, people don't realize this. I'm showing my age, but they used to actually turn off the radio and TV stations back in the day. And they would just have this white noise on and it would be silence, believe it or not. So that's how long ago this was. But it
Wow.
really opened up a lot of doors in the media world. And more importantly, Matthew, before social media, it taught me how to connect with people one to many. And I realized if I say this, the audience responds this way. And I got to test at a very young age those boundaries of communication. And ever since then, I've owned media companies and I've always lived my life very publicly. And I've spent a lifetime, over 30 years now, building public platforms for people to share their stories.
That is so good. Wow. Starting at such a young age to have that kind of exposure, that's going to do a lot for your experience, your skill, and your confidence, right?
Absolutely. It was so much fun. And it really taught me how to think on my feet. There was a time where in high school, there's like my friends came to visit and I wasn't supposed to really have guests in there. So I was kind of busted because I was it was back then we had these big records. So I was playing a
Wow.
record and one of my friends accidentally hit it and it screeched and went across the record.
Oh no,
And
this is
I
live on live on a show.
live radio. And I was like,
Wow.
my boss is probably listening. I'm going to get fired. So I grabbed the microphone. I had to think really fast. And I said, okay, who out there hit their radio at home and messed up my record? And 3 people called in to apologize.
No way. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it
So,
was really,
so
it was a lot of fun.
wow, that's so good. I couldn't imagine that. What made you like you were working, you were doing the gig, like, and you just said all your friends were out doing parties and stuff like that. That sounds very entrepreneurial. A little bit nuts, right? Some people would say that's a little bit crazy. Why aren't you out there having fun with everybody else? What was that all
Yeah.
about? What was going through in your mindset then?
That's so funny you say that. I am from a long history of entrepreneurs and I'm proud of that. And so for me, that was normal. So on my mom's side, I'm related to the Wright brothers that invented the airplane. On my
Wow.
dad's side, I'm related to the Tappan Stowe family that invented the microwave. So if you combine those two together, they have microwaves in airplanes now, which is super weird. But those two crazy families of inventors with crazy ideas actually merged in my generation with my parents. And most people don't realize those two families ever merged. And
Wow.
so I also come from a long history of writers, newspaper publishers. Horace Greeley, who was a big East Coast newspaper editor back in the 1800s. And then my great grandmother, Phoebe K. Warner, was a writer and very big in the women's suffrage movement. She wrote a famous essay called The Cash Value of a Woman back in the winter of 1918. And I'm currently writing a book that's reprising her theories and research back then to see how far and not so far women have come in, since then. But that book is called The Cash Value of a Woman. So that's my next project that's near and dear to me.
Oh,
And so I definitely came from a long history of entrepreneurs. The men and women in my family have been entrepreneurs, including my dad, um, my brother, my
fascinating.
mom, aunts, uncles, everybody. So yeah, it just, to me, most people's biggest fear is losing their job. As an entrepreneur, my biggest fear is having to get a job.
I hear you with that one. I hear you. I it's like a very different correlation to how I grew up, and it's so interesting because you come from this place where you had this inspiration around you. You had these role models of people, I'm sure, in your life that gave you this spark or this guidance or this internal drive, because not everybody has that. Let's face it, right? It's something that you either have to work on hard or you learn it from the environment that you're in, right? And I was in the camp that had to work really hard to get there because I never had those role models.
Mhm.
And what's interesting about what you're saying there is that I try and be the role model for my daughter, who is now young, and show her how what we do and be engaged in the whole entrepreneurial journey. And it's really interesting how you say that. It's like my family were entrepreneurs. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And so that fit is easy. Like my friends were at home, like partying. I was doing the thing. I was growing my business.
Well, and my family is extremely supportive. I literally hit the lotto with my family. I would choose them all over again. My parents are amazing. My dad's 88 years young. My mom's in 84. He's still working. He's been an attorney for over 60 years. He's been a Sunday school teacher for 60 years. He coached Little League Baseball for 50 years. Um, our family owns collectively about 90 properties between all of us. So it's just, I've learned so much from a young age of watching them and seeing his integrity as a businessman and how he ran his small business as an attorney. Um, I learned a lot of really good attorney jokes, lawyer jokes. um, and I
I thought you
just,
might say you learned a lot of dad jokes.
yeah, dad jokes, attorney jokes. We also went to A&M, so Aggie jokes. Those of you in, in the Texas area, you know what I'm talking about, like gig 'em, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, And so it's just, what's funny is at a very young age, the irony is I got in trouble when I was 15. I got my license. I was working, at the radio station. And there were times where they had to drive me there because I wasn't old enough, because in the States you have to be 16.
Right. Yeah.
So I took the car without permission once. I got busted. I can't get away with anything. I swear, I get busted all the time. That's
Yeah.
why I just trying to stay straight and narrow because I can't get away with anything. So I think, just like my friend at the radio station, right? So I took the car. I didn't have permission. I came home and they were home and I got grounded. So my punishment was my dad made me read this book by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, wow.
And I was so annoyed. I was like, oh, I already have friends. I don't need to read this stupid book. And I was so resistant and such a bratty teenager that I was just like not going to do it. I fought him tooth and nail. And he made me not only read it, but I had to memorize the mantra at the end of every chapter and then do a report back to him. And
Wow.
looking back, it was probably the best thing that ever happened in my life. Although I was super annoyed as a teenager at the time and thought he was like the most giant nerd on the planet. Like, why can't you just ground me like everybody else, you know? And even though I was resistant and fought him for months, I got through that book. And and it was amazing because it was such an impressionable time as being a teenager and being young and being a woman and working in media at that time in the public eye. I learned so much about self-help and self-love and positive thinking. I got into reading other books like Norman Vincent Peale. Um, and it
So
really changed life.
that's I've heard about lots of dads giving punishment, and dads do give punishment, but giving punishment to read a book and do a report, that is a first for me, I have to say. And that is technology. To have that kind of influence and role model in your life is so amazing. I applaud your father and I applaud you for growing and learning from that experience. That is such an awesome story. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's start opening up a few of the other areas of your life that you got experience in. Now, you've worked with a diverse range of influential figures and companies. Can you share with me some insights on how media can be a powerful tool for building personal and professional brand? Go through it.
Ooh,
Give us a little bit of insight on that.
I love this question. So media can be your best friend or your worst enemy, and it depends on how you leverage it. So before social media, if you really look back to the old school media, there was an oath. I'm a journalist by trade. I also am a writer for Forbes, and a contributor in the business side for
Wow.
Forbes
Yeah.
and CNN and others. And so I'm a journalist at heart in the most um, like in the most way of integrity, if that's possible to say, because back in the day, we had to take an oath as a journalist and we were really committed to the truth. Now, so much has shifted with schools and universities are no longer having journalists. They're not having journalism degrees and they're shifting to social media degrees. And it's really creating this issue of what the truth is. It's a very gray matter now. And you see this in media a lot.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I have this TV show, right? I'm an executive producer of a TV show on
Yeah.
PBS. It's in 250 million households. And we're casting right now for season 2. And I get approached every day as a journalist, people acting like they're doing me a favor by being on my show. And it makes me laugh because it's like, let me get this straight. You want me to take money out of my pocket to promote you and your brand for free, put you in front of hundreds of millions of people, and you're acting like you're doing me a favor. So, and yet they want to
Wow.
promote their books and all these things. And so most people approach journalism that way. They approach the media as this skeptical thing, like the media is going to twist everything. The media definitely has an agenda. And I've been the media because I've owned magazines and newspapers for over 30 years as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another part of my life.
Yeah.
And so for me, I always tell people, media can be your friend, but think of a journalist as a partner in your life. And if you approach a journalist or a media company with how can I add value to their audience, the same with a podcast, how can I create value for your audience so that you want to have me on the show? And indirectly, that way it's not a direct promotion. For our
Yeah.
television show, it's educational. We can't do any promotion. So when we do streaming things, we can do a lot more promotion. And then obviously online, you can do all kinds of things. But what social media has turned into, unfortunately, is now the common person, I say common meaning non-journalists with integrity, can literally take a public platform and abuse it. And what have we done with it, Matthew? We've made it a negative place full of toxicity where people have bullied each other. And what here we give the American people and the whole world actually an opportunity to give freedom of speech and a platform to say what they want to say. And people have abused it and turned it
Yeah.
into something like a Frankenstein monster.
Yeah.
And as a
And the,
journalist, it breaks my heart because it has gotten so far away from what it was intended to do, is create the truth and and give the truth to people as opposed to skewing it and making it a gray
so
area.
true, so true. And and we could dive into the topic of social media and content for hours, right? I think lots of people can, without a doubt. Lots to complain about, lots to talk about. One thing is for sure, though, that the media has, if we separate it from social media and the media, right? If we say there are organizations that have established themselves, for instance, Forbes, they have an established framework, they have an established following, they have a brand. That's separate from, say, people going onto Facebook and just talking about stuff, rather than that. That's a whole different kind of kettle of fish, because that's the free market and people are just blurting out. Like, there's people doing good things, there's people obviously not doing good things, but it's just a free for all out there, right? It's like the old Wild West, as they would say. Uh,
Oh, yeah. And there's
Crazy.
really no
And
regulation. I mean, it's hard to unring the bell when
correct.
you put it out there like that. And the other thing is, I think that people don't realize is, there used to be what's called earned media through PR companies, and people paid like Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, they paid six figures or more to publicists to get on these platforms before Oprah's producers saw them and kind of shared the platform with them. But they were also credible experts in their own right before all of that. And the biggest
Right.
mistake people have about media is they come to me and say, "Can you get me on Good Morning America?" I'm like, "Sure, but how are you going to monetize it? Because you're not going to get paid to do a TED talk. You're not going to get paid to go on, on the news and or on Oprah or something." So she doesn't have her network anymore right now like that. But um, the idea is, how are you going to monetize that platform better as an entrepreneur or an expert in your field? Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil were both experts in their own right before they had a huge platform. And so many people make this mistake of saying, if I just get on a platform, I'm going to make money. And they don't have what we call income generating assets, like a book or a coaching program or a business on the back end. And more importantly, today, all these media companies are shifting to a pay to play model. And the PR companies are getting squeezed out because people can now go direct to the media companies and do the pay to play model with guaranteed exposure to millions of people. So some of the PR companies are still trying to fight for old school, what we call earned media, where you go pay a PR firm $10 or $20,000 a month, and then they try to get you booked on some of these stages. Now, podcast hosts, TV, radio, even magazines and newspapers are finally realizing they can offset a lot of their costs by creating an editorial or pay to play model, where you can go direct to some of these, just like Forbes, for example. Forbes has their magazine, they have their subscription model, they have an online portal, they have a pay to play model, and they have a book publishing division. My company, Defining Moments, is structured very similar to Forbes, except we don't have the news division side, but we have the book publishing side. We have, platforms to create opportunities for our clients and others. We do work with PR companies, but we also go direct to a lot of people to give regular folks the chance to have these huge platforms that they wouldn't normally have.
And so just to go back, just to circle back a little bit, um, we, media is such a diverse and broad topic in essence. You have a specific niche that you work within. And my question is, what are the insights that can be a powerful tool for building the personal, the personal, and so again, can you share with us the insights on how media can be a powerful tool for building personal brand. Like how because you can go out there and you can spend money. You can go out there and you can do all these things, the pay to play model, as you're just saying. The thing is that some people just don't know. And I'm sure there's a
Right.
lot of people listening right now and they don't know what it is, even what is the benefit, and how would they start looking at this as a tool for growing their business? Can you give us some insights in that?
Absolutely. Great question. So, when you are an expert in your field, number one, if you write a book and you become a best-selling author, now you're considered instantly the credible expert in your field. Think about it. We say, oh, this person so and so wrote the book on it. So, what journalists look for in the media is they look for credible experts and sources so they don't lose their job and they don't look bad. Because if they have a source and that person goes on Fox News or CNN and they look crazy, then everybody goes back to that producer or the booking agent or the PR person and says, what were you thinking? And so, the more that you can be credible, be professional, actually have books and assets and things that prove, Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. If you can prove that you are the expert because you're a best-selling author, all of a sudden it raises your level of credibility and authority in the industry. Not to mention it raises your coaching prices, your consulting fees. You can become an expert witness. And so the way that you take those, what we call income generating assets, like a book, like a funnel, like your business, you look at Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz, they leveraged media in a really big way. And now they're two of the top 10 doctors in the world as far as wealth and income. Dr. Oz, why is it that Dr. Oz as a doctor is worth 100 million? And most doctors are maybe clocking in 200,000 a year, if they're lucky. What's the difference between Dr. Oz and your doctor down the street? They're both very great doctors. The difference is
Media.
he partnered media in a very
Yeah.
credible way. You took a credible expert, you put them in the media, and all of a sudden it's like throwing gas on the fire in a good way. And so you
Wow.
can leverage media as a true expert if you learn how to speak to the media. And you also have to learn, how do I say something that becomes a client conversion model formula when I speak on somebody else's platform if I can't be promotional? How do I say something that adds value to that audience but also ends up bringing a client to my front door?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll give a quick example if you'd like, Matthew, financially. Let's
Yes.
say you have a $50 product, okay? Most business owners out there have a service or a product at least worth $50, correct? That's a
Right.
safe assumption. So let's say you get on a huge platform with millions of people and you have a free gift. And let's say you're reaching 1 million people and only 10% opt in for your free gift. That's 100,000 people saying yes on your email list like that
Yes.
because it's a juicy gift. Now, let's just say out of those 100,000, 25%, which is very conservative, buy even a $50 offer that you have as an upsell on your website. That's
Yes.
$1.25 million from
Wow.
that one platform of exposure, one time,
Amazing. That's crazy
right?
numbers, right?
Yeah. So
Uh,
the more you can really become the expert in your field and specialize as an expert, kind of like going back to that medical example, the general practitioner may work 50 times as much as the brain surgeon, but the
Yeah.
brain surgeon only do one surgery a day that's like 7, 8 hours. So they may only have a few patients a week. And people wait months and they take off work and it's like a specialty that they do to see the cardiologist or
Yeah.
the specialist or the neurologist. And so in your field as an expert or an entrepreneur, you're better off being a specialist. And now you can become a global expert in a matter of months, not
Right.
years.
That's
By
powerful, right?
leveraging
And the media has that capacity to just blow it up if you do it the right way. What I
it,
find,
it does, but I always say start with a book first because then your book gets you booked as the expert. And here's what happens when you become a best-selling author. Now your speaker fees go from a few $1,000s, get this, to $20,000 to $50,000, and you're on the
wow,
same level as a B-list celebrity and a professional athlete. So is it easier to
right.
go write a book in the next, 2 months or go get a gold medal or join the NBA. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the book is a little bit easier, right? Less sit-ups and push-ups.
Absolutely. And it depends. It's a process like anything else. I mean, it's taken
Yes.
people 12 years to figure it out. It took me decades to figure it out. And that's why I've committed my life to helping people that are truly experts create these things a lot faster so they can, expedite their global vision and authority in a matter of months, not years. And it saves people decades in that process.
I love that. I love that so much. And a few things that I'm picking up from what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong. Um, there's this context that I hear a lot, and I think it gets forced down our throats that we have to follow our passions. We have to, passion first and then everything else after. And I've always been somebody that has been on the opposite side of the fence because I see so many people following their passions and following their dreams and blah, blah, blah. And then you never see them go anywhere because they're missing the key ingredient, which you've just mentioned about 5 times before, is the skill, the expert is. And if, for me, from what I'm reading from this, is if you want to grow or be anybody in any industry and use the media to have a book, you need to have skills. And the skills come from doing the same thing over and over and over again so that you become so good at something that that then becomes your passion. And I think what I see a lot of people doing is going, oh, I'm going to get on the media, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to do this thing. And they're doing it from a place of not building up their skills first. And when they do that, it comes through in everything else that they do, and it lies flat. What do you think about that? Is that something that you like? What was your perspective around that?
Oh, I agree 100%. I think and I used to, when I was younger, I made a decision at 15 years old from passion. I want to do something I'm passionate about. I want to do something that sounds fun. And so I made the mistake of just choosing passion. And I won't say it's a mistake because I spent my entire youth and my young adult life choosing things I was passionate about. Right. And every decision I made is, am I passionate about this? And the thing about passion is it can burn out. It can be, and if you're basing your business based on an emotion, it can go up and down, and you can go up and down. When you tie it to your purpose, it's different because
Yeah,
your purpose is more like, I can't not do this.
yeah,
I must do this. I can't breathe without doing this. And that will fuel you more than just passion. That
yeah.
when you feel like you're locked into your purpose and you're in alignment with that, then you become so undeniable that you become the best in the world at what you do. And when you're
Okay.
the best in the world, Matthew, you don't negotiate with people. You get everything you want and you help other people get that result as well.
So true, so true. And it comes from even doing the stuff that sometimes you don't like doing.
Yeah, you have to
That's what
learn
it
to
is, following
embrace
your
the
purpose.
mundane. You
Yeah,
embrace the mundane. I mean, look at some of the best actors in the world. They're on Broadway and they have to go and do the same words and the same movements every single day for months, if not years, and make it look fresh and new.
I love that.
That's
I love
the challenges.
so true. I love that. I first came to hear about Tony Robbins probably about 15 years ago, and loved his story. Tony Robbins has done lots of great stuff. And I remember being in his event, and he told his story. It was amazing story. Love this stuff. All pumped up. He has a great way of getting everyone energized. And just recently, I watched another one of his new, I think it's the Rise Up summit that he did, because I wanted my daughter to learn about Tony Robbins. And so we did this as a family. And lo and behold, the same story that I heard like nearly 15 years ago, he's still telling today, nearly identical, just with a few little twists. And I'm like, wow, that's
Yeah.
it, right?
Tony,
Find the thing that works and
Tony,
keep doing it.
Tony's amazing. He's been one of my mentors for over 20 years. And I actually worked with Tony's organization. I was a trainer at his company. And so it was really interesting during COVID to be behind the scenes and watch this incredible man who's just this giant of a man to begin with, physically and emotionally and mentally and spiritually. He just shows up so big in the room, right? And it was such a blessing because I remember laughing. He was like, there, let's just move. I was supposed to speak on stage in San Jose in March of 2020 at UPW. And we all know what happened in March of 2020. The whole world came to a screeching halt, right? And he was saying, it was funny to watch him navigate. It was very fascinating because he was like, we'll just move it to Vegas. They're never going to shut down Vegas. Right? Like that was something he would say. And he
Yeah.
was determined and he kept moving. It was Dallas and then Vegas and San Francisco. And he kept moving it around, trying to fulfill this huge event with thousands of people. How are you supposed to do that during COVID? And I'm always fascinated with Tony's innovation. And I watched him not only shift his entire business, and we all think we lost money. He lost millions of dollars in that environment. And he took all of his personal, like in-person events of the UPW, like Unleash the Power Within, where walk on fire. And how are you going to do that during COVID? And he got innovative and creative, which is what he does best. And so he gathered around the whole team. We had these meetings and I got to see behind the scenes of that and what happened. It was so cool because it turned into people, maybe people paying $5,000 to get in person to an online event in June of that year with over 250,000 people. He literally broke the internet. They're on with the people of Zoom going, what do we do here? And I'll never forget Tony turning with tears in his eyes saying, oh my gosh, this has been a dream of mine and a vision for so long. I'm looking into their living rooms and I'm seeing multiple generations, like you just said with your daughter,
Yeah.
of kids and parents and grandparents sitting on a couch, listening to every word I'm saying. I'm getting goosebumps right now, right?
Me
Because
too.
he's so moved by that. And it was a dream come true. And who knew that all that craziness had to happen for him to fulfill this huge vision that he had. And it completely changed how we do events. And it
Totally.
completely tested this theory of how you can still do an online Zoom and get the goosebumps like we just had. You can still do that online when you show up with that energy, even if you're not in the room with people. And he
There's no
changed.
there's no boundaries. There's no like what do you call it? Like no what do I say?
No
Distance
ceiling.
boundaries, right? Location
Yep.
boundaries. Anywhere in the world, anyone in the world you can reach now and do
And
that.
it
Kind of,
instantly shifted the way we all do business as coaches, consultants, business owners. And we didn't know at the time that the whole world was going to have to operate like that forever, like where people were going to be moving their companies from home. We all thought it was temporary. Remember back then, even just a few months. Now, before that, what I call BC, before COVID, you know what I mean? We were doing everything in person. Like 90% of our events were in person, and the online stuff was considered flaky and not that good. And
yeah.
now, what we call AD or after death or after COVID is like everything is this hybrid where we do online and in-person events, but it opened up the entire world. And
So
our
different.
business went crazy during COVID and blew up in such a good way. And we all of a sudden grew so fast because we had clients all over the world and were able to recreate that same experience online that we used to do in the room.
So true. So fun. I love it. And that's quite an experience having that, seeing that all come to fruition at that time. Must have been quite an
Oh,
experience.
it
So
was a crazy experience. And, another example of Tony, if you want me to share, something I thought was so brilliant that, okay, years ago, I wrote my first book. This was actually my book. That was a book it was actually with Chicken Soup for the Soul. It was a Chicken Soup for the Soul book. It's
wow.
called Defining Elements and it's Coping with the Loss of a Child. This was a Chicken Soup book. I had a 20-year book deal with them and then they sold their company. So I thought I had it made. I had a major publisher. I thought this was the only way my book's ever going to get done. And I remember, I had all this stuff going for me, but I still couldn't finish my book. I still was like imposter syndrome and making excuses and questioning everything and spiraling and not knowing what to do. And I had two of the greatest mentors on the planet, Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield, who were publishing my book with their company under the Chicken Soup publishing brand. And they had sold more books than anybody on the planet, right? With their Chicken Soup over
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
250 different versions of that book and billions
So,
of books. And Mark looked at me and he said, Melanie, stop thinking of who your book is going to help and start thinking of who your book is going to hurt if you don't finish it.
wow.
Matthew, I tell you, the next day, this woman in my hometown stepped in front of a train and took her own life because her son had passed away 15 years
Wow.
prior. And I thought, whoa, I have the solution for her. She's suffering, and I'm being so selfish and focused on my own fears that I just cost somebody their life. And it freaked me out. And so at that moment, I shifted. And within a few weeks, my book was ready. I had 50 different stories of parents who had experienced the loss of a child. And I got the book done. I was so excited, ready to launch. And then they sold their company and my book went along with it. It stopped everything. So then I ended up pulling my book out of their company. I created my own company called Defining Moments, and it is the new chicken soup for the soul. And their company went in a completely different direction. Nothing against the new owner. They just went in a different direction.
Yeah.
I realized it wasn't for me and we weren't in alignment, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
they've been amazing and supportive and have endorsed what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so we ended up doing multiple collaboration books for Defining Moments, creating this incredible publishing company. But here's the mistake I made. Are you ready? Mistake number 2.
Yes.
Once the book finally came out, well, first of all, it went from there to another huge publishing company. This was the largest publishing company in the world that was a Christian book company. So I thought, okay, I'm good, right?
Yeah.
I'll got faith-based stories in here. Let's go. Well, that person that owned that publishing company was a mentor of mine and was a New York Times bestselling author, was somebody I trusted.
Yeah.
Well, that person ended up releasing my book under their banner, and they never to this day paid me a dime. So my book
Wow.
sold 1,000 copies for years. I never got paid. And
Goodness
after 2
me.
years of this contract, I got my rights back. So I started over again. I got my rights. I had to fight with Amazon to prove that I owned the copyright of my own book and that
Wow.
they were legally. I didn't sue them, but I said, I want to get the rights back to my own book.
Yeah.
The day that happened, I got the email that I got the rights back. Guess what happened? I got a call from the FBI and they're
Oh,
like, how do you know this person? And he got arrested and indicted that day and is still in jail, this person. So I won't say
wow.
their name,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the journey of writing books took decades for me and it was very painful going the traditional publishing route. And that's why I decided at that time, I'm going to release my book myself. I'm going to self-publish. And I did. And within 2 weeks, my book became #1 on the bestseller list.
No.
Yep.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
that's
How
why
did
I'm
that,
an
how did that make you feel?
Oh my gosh. I remember being in Target, right? It was like a retail store here in the States. And I was standing at the checkout stand and I got this notification that my book was a #1 bestseller. And I started screaming and jumping up and down. And people looked at me like I was crazy or they thought I was having like some kind of conniption or some kind of seizure. They didn't. And then I remember the lady at the checkout, she had these earrings and they were wiggling like this. And she was just standing there staring at me. I'm like, my book just hit #1. And she just stared at me and blinked at me. And I realized, oh my gosh, no one has a clue what this feels like. They don't know how to even
There's
relate
no
to what I'm saying.
context. Yeah. Yeah.
She just kept blinking at me and her earrings were doing this. And I was just like, this is very anticlimactic, you know? And it was just such a high. And it was like, oh my gosh. And I just got so emotional. I cried in the parking lot in my car, you know, I called my mom. It was like, everybody was so excited and so happy for me, and it felt like my baby finally found the home that it's been looking for, and the people
So
finally started appreciating it, right?
how
And
did that change your life from that moment? What were the big changes and shifts that
oh,
happened from that defining moment?
I love that. Thank you. It was a defining moment, which is why I love that so much. And here's the other thing that happened. Here's the mistake I made after the book came out. I didn't know the value, the power of writing a book. I didn't know how many people were going to see me as the expert who wrote the book on this. And because I lost my son passed away. that was a personal tragedy. He died in my arms. And it really created a lot of loss in my life. And I spiraled out of control. We'll get to that later if you want. But
Yeah.
the thing is, I wanted to write this book as a way to help other parents. And that's what
Yeah.
drove my passion. Even though I'm not a grief person, I'm not an expert in grief, I didn't know what I was doing. And
Yeah.
so what happened is people saw me as this expert. So they started calling me and they were suicidal. And they're like,
Wow.
I need help. You're the expert. You wrote the book on it. Fix me.
Oh,
Help
wow.
me. And you know
Yeah.
what I thought?
Yeah.
I went, oh my gosh, it's happening again. I lost that one lady when I procrastinated and couldn't get my act together. Now I've got these people threatening
Yeah.
to take their lives because they're hurting so much. And I don't know what to say. I'm not a counselor. So guess what I did? I got on with Tony, my mentor, Tony Robbins. I said,
Yeah.
Tony, what do I do? And he's so brilliant. This is those of you that have a business with an offer, right? Those of you like a coach or a consultant, listen to this offer. This is what you dream of. He said, well, what do you think you should do? And I said, he goes, what are your options to help these people? I said, well, I can go get my marriage family therapist, license. And he goes, how long will that take? I said, probably 2 years and a lot of hours, like 200 hours or something. And he goes, and where will these people be then? And I went, oh, they probably won't be here. And he goes, well, what else can you do? And he made me go through this torturous list of crazy things that I couldn't come up with anything. And he said, I have an idea. How's this for a pitch? He says, I am creating a course called Strategic Intervention, and I'm only going to allow 35 people to do it. And I believe that you are one of them because your heart is similar to mine. I want to transfer my knowledge to 35 people on this planet. And he said, I'm going to transfer my knowledge to only 35 people on this planet, and I want you to be one of them.
Wow.
And I'm in. And so within 8 to 10 weeks, I became a master life coach. I learned all these amazing tools for self-healing for myself. I learned how to make money as a coach. And I ended up becoming a grief coach for a little bit of time. And I really walked these parents through the darkest time of their life. And I learned that they were willing to pay to get out of that hole because it was so deep and dark. And I felt weird charging them. I didn't know how to do all that. And so I learned a lot in that process. But more importantly, the power and authority and credibility of writing a book and becoming a best-selling author and how other people see you. So writing a book is a transformational experience, and you must become the person who wrote the best-selling book.
So good.
That was the
Love it.
defining.
Boom. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about all of that. That's just such an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's dive a little bit deeper. We got so much depth here. It's just crazy. I'm loving
I know,
this.
we could whole masterclass on this stuff. It's
Yeah.
crazy, right?
So as somebody who has coached experts to find their purpose, what advice would you give entrepreneurs trying to identify and monetize their unique knowledge?
Number one, I would say definitely write a book and highlight your expertise, right? And I'll give you another classic example. Let's say you owned an insurance company for 20 or 30 years and you've made several $100,000 a year or more, maybe even $1 million. And you know that area like the back of your hand and you want to retire. I believe it's selfish to retire with all of that knowledge. There are thousands, if not millions of people coming into that space, even just as one industry called insurance, where there are younger people or newer people coming into that, wanting to learn this market. They don't want to spend decades learning how to make 6 figures a year as an insurance agent, and they're willing to pay for speed, and they're willing to hire you. And so you can write a book, create a course, and become a mentor to them, and they will pay you for that expertise. So you could fund your retirement through helping other people learn that process and save them decades at the same time.
I love that. I love that.
So that's fun.
Retire.
Monetize your knowledge and
Yes.
know your knowledge has value and people are willing to pay you for it. And look at the price you paid to earn and learn the knowledge that you have.
That's so good. And that's so true, Melanie. A lot of people don't appreciate their value. I see it all the time. I deal with people that are experts. They've spent so many years building their craft, They have this amazing amount of knowledge, and they can do things better, quicker, faster, easier than other people because of these unique skills and nuances that they've learned. And I oftentimes speak to people and say, you should turn that into, sell that knowledge or do something, write a book, do a course or something like that to teach other people. It's just sad that a lot of people get caught up with the imposter syndrome and get caught up with the thought that they're not good enough or they wouldn't be able to serve people at that highest level. And it's really sad. You get the other people on the other side who have got skills and stuff, and then they know they can provide value, but they just they have these blockages, this procrastination, this thing about doing the thing, right, to make it simple. Like, how do they do it? I think that maybe it's a knowledge gap, right, that it's procrastination. But it's really sad that there's so many people out there that have got such a lot of knowledge and skill that they can bring to this world, but they're not doing it. What would you say to people doing what you're doing with books is the thing that they need to consider or try, or some tips to get them from feeling stuck, procrastination, or imposter syndrome to taking action on, let's say, writing a book? What would that look like?
Great question. I have 3 words: do it now, because we all think we have more time. And there's a great quote by Miles Monroe, the late Miles Monroe, and he said, "The greatest treasures on earth are not in the diamond mines of South Africa. They're not in the depths of the brains of Silicon Valley, right? It is actually right down the street from you, and it's called the graveyard, because there are books that were never written. There were songs that were never written. There were businesses that were never started. And it breaks my heart to think, to me, a fate worse than death is wasted talent. And if you have a skill set, whether you're a great writer or a great speaker, doesn't matter. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a defining moment to share. Everybody deserves that opportunity to be able to share that with the world. And it's really just an easy process to learn, like baking chocolate chip cookies or building a car. Like, there's a process of creating this book and these assets that we call income generating assets. But it's all about monetizing your knowledge and your existing expertise. And you don't have to have new skills to do that. You can collaborate and work with people that will help extract that knowledge and put it into the right formula. And before you know it, it's out there in the world, and it's really creating impact and income for you. So if you don't know how to do something, I guarantee you there are other people out there who do. And instead of asking, how do I do this? Start asking, who do I know that can help me do this?
I love that. That is so powerful. I love it. Wow, wow, wow. This is so awesome. Okay. I'm going to dive a little bit further now. I want to go into a story that you shared with me earlier. And we spoke about the context of you being 3.9 million. What happened there? And tell me about the journey to get to that place where you back in $4 million positive. What was
Wow.
going on there? Talk to me about that.
Thank you. Boy, that was such a tough time. And I'm a journaler. I've had journals since I was 15 years old. So I can literally go back and read my journals in that time and be immediately present with that pain, because it was without a doubt the hardest time of my life. And so it was many years ago, and I was living an amazing life. I was making $1 million a year. I had a great business that was thriving. I owned magazines, and I was happy. And I was married, and I had kids. And I was in my 30s. And I thought, okay, this is the life I've worked so hard for. And it took me 20 years really to build this life and to learn how to make this kind of money. And then everything changed when my son, there was an accident. It was a medical error at a hospital. I almost died. I came about 90 seconds away from losing my life. And I remember laying in that hospital gurney, and the doctor said, this is life threatening and you might not make it. Now I'm going to share something with you, if it's okay, if I'm a little vulnerable here, but a week before that happened, I had found this bucket list that I had written when I was 18 years old. And I had this huge vision for my life, and I had written down all these things I wanted to do. And I thought it was going to take an entire lifetime to do that, write a list of goals. And I wrote down things I want to do before I die. And there were things I had written when I was 18 that I found this list in my 30s that I had forgotten I even wanted. And I started marking things off that had already happened. So about a week before this happened, Matthew, that list was completely marked off. There was one thing left on my list, and that was to write a book, that I hadn't done it yet. And I immediately thought, first of all, they're like, you might not make it. This is life threatening. My first thought was, what about my husband? What about my family? What about my laundry? Literally, like, I got dirty laundry at home. I can't die, And then I thought, what about that book? I never finished it. I thought I had more time. And so nothing makes you more present than the thought of losing your life. Nothing snaps you into like priority and like urgency than thinking you're about to die. And you're literally, my blood ran cold and my whole life flashed before my eyes. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was losing blood and I had about 90 seconds left to live. So this was all happening very fast. I had a very powerful spiritual experience at that hospital that day as well, where God really showed me this vision for my life and everything I'm doing right now, even talking to you. Like, it's crazy how all this happened in a matter of seconds. And then I had this incredible peace that I just knew no matter what, I was going to be okay. For me, that's faith, and having that faith of like, no matter what, you can't threaten a Christian with heaven, right? And I had this peace, and somehow I knew it was going to be okay.
Wow.
And I didn't know till a few hours, about 90 minutes later, that I was going to live and I would recuperate and recover from that. Unfortunately, there was damage done for my son. So I almost died, but my son suffered brain damage. He went into a coma, and after a few days, we had to remove him from life support. So it was definitely the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. As a parent, I never thought I could live through it. I didn't think I would survive it, to be honest. I shut down so hard emotionally that I really didn't care if my business survived, if my marriage survived. I didn't know. I mean, I was grateful that I lived through it, but I'm like, God, why did I survive that only to go through this hell of living without my son? And then I just shut down emotionally, and it shut down everything. I had to shut down my business, my only source of income I spent 20 years building. I went through bankruptcy, foreclosure. I ended up getting divorced. Um, I was going through tax audits at that time too. It was insane. I had to go to tax court and represent myself in federal tax court, and I couldn't afford to hire anybody. I went from making $1 million a year to living on $1,800 a month as a single mom with 3 kids. And I had to learn to meet myself at my means. And I can't even tell you all the miracles that happened. It was brutal, I call it. I mean, it was beautiful and brutal at the same time.
Yeah. Wow.
And at the time, I thought I was being buried. I didn't know how I was going to survive it all. And now I can look back and tell you that I was being planted for the growth and the opportunities and the success that my life has taken for today. Everything that I have that's good and successful today is directly tied to what I perceived to be a huge failure at the time. But it was like this new rebirth. Not only was my life starting over again, but my entire being of who I am was starting over again. And I had to heal in so many levels. I learned how to do things I never thought I was capable of doing, and I became really proud of myself. And through that process, Matthew, I learned tools, like super cool ninja tools to like not only survive, but thrive. And then I wrote my book during all of that. And so it was like, wow, like I learned how to do all these things. And so over that process, the book was the catalyst that changed everything and gave me that
So good.
confidence to go out there and get it done. And
Wow.
so learning all these things through all of that the hard way, that was really what shifted and gave me that authority to go out and like really become a voice in the community to help other people rebuild their life. I became grief girl and bounce back babe. Like I didn't even know that was going to be my superhero power, you know?
Wow.
It was
Wow.
it was like it just happened because I was trying to not just survive, but learn how to thrive again. And
It's so
so the
inspirational.
book was the catalyst. And long story short, I don't know if
I
it's so
love
short.
that.
It
So
it
I'm
came out.
so sorry. Sorry, Mandy. I'm so sorry for your loss. I can totally relate. My mum went through a very similar experience. I was a twin, so I really get that. I resonate with that. It's not easy for mums and to go through that experience. So my
No,
deepest apologies. But here's the thing, right? In all adversity comes, like, if you want to rise like the phoenix, if you're going to become a phoenix, you have to burn first, right? And
mhm.
to rise as a phoenix means you've got to fight through the fire and build yourself up again. That's an amazing story. And what I so love is how your book, or the context of a book, is so much leverage in your life. It's so much meaning and so much empowerment that you've got out of it. It's really, really inspirational, which really hits home the value and the importance of the text, right? The book. So many
Oh,
people,
absolutely. And the
so many people
expert
don't value that.
and the other experts that were in this book that were parents that had changed the trajectory of their entire lives because of the death of their children, like Mike Reynolds, who started the three strikes law, and some well-known people who shifted their whole identity because of what happened with their children. I learned so much from them, and it fueled me. And this was a very cathartic and healing process, knowing it was going to help millions of other parents out there. Because there's a very high rate of divorce in families that have lost a child. There's also a lot of siblings left behind where there's a lot of depression. There's even thoughts of suicide or attempts, or people that are turning to drugs and alcohol to self-medicate from this really dark pain that they don't know how to get out of. And there really is not even a word for it. If you think about it, if you're if you lose your spouse, you're called a widow. If you lose your parent, you're called an orphan, but it goes against the natural order of the universe to lose a child. They don't even have a name for it. And that's how I felt so alone in this grief, that people would see me in public and they would turn and run the other way because they didn't know what to say to me. And I felt so isolated and alone. And
Yeah.
I just became deeper in my faith, and it really carried me through. And I'm so grateful for that foundation that I had growing up in faith. And I just turned closer to that, and I got a lot of answers and direction from that to help me rebuild my life as well. Um, and what's interesting is, you know, I turned to other experts and mentors, and I turned to a mentor to help me learn how to be a coach. Gary Zukav was a mentor, and he gave me some healing words that transformed my grief like that. And
Would you
it was
share
interesting.
those words?
I can, yes. And I actually put them in the introduction to this book because I thought if no one reads the book and they just read the intro, maybe they'll get these words and be blessed, because it shifted the way I looked at grief forever, and it changed me and healed me like that. And I didn't think that was possible. So between the tools I learned from Tony Robbins about grief and strategic intervention, and these words from Gary that I put in here, it just blew my mind. And he said, and I'll share this with you real quick. He said, when your child dies, it changes you forever. And when a parent loses a child, the grief is a matter of perspective, the perspective of the personality or the perspective of the soul. And he said, from the perspective of the soul, these interactions between personalities are meaningful, and every soul comes to this world and this earth school when it chooses, and every soul leaves this earth school when it chooses. And if you look at Carson as a personality who lived for a short amount of time and encountered tragic circumstances and died, then you're looking at it from a point of personality. And we know personality is ego and fear, right? If you look at Carson as a soul like yourself, like everyone else on this earth that left this earth when it chose, you will have a different perspective. You will be able to see the gifts that this soul offered to you in its short stay on earth. You will reach a place in your life where you are grateful that this soul chose to be with you and live life with you for however short amount of time. If you do not, you will live your life in anguish, thinking a tragedy has occurred. When your other kids have birthdays and graduations, you will say, Carson should have been here. through all of this time, you'll be imposing on your other children a burden to carry because no matter what they do or how successful they are, it will be causing mommy or daddy pain. If you look at Carson as a great soul like yourself, who voluntarily left in order to be with you and offer gifts, then you will begin the process to be grateful for the power of the interaction that you had with this soul and be able to receive the gifts that this soul came here to specifically give you, his siblings, and the entire world. And if you do not, you will be continuously turning away those very gifts, and you will be denying the very wealth of wisdom and compassion that was offered to you by this soul that you know as Carson, your son.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Amazing.
How
Oh my
it
goodness.
still brings tears to my eyes because
Yeah.
it it shifted how I saw grief, and I've never looked at grief differently. And I know I am connected as a mother to my son. That soul, that mother-son love, that soul love is the part of us that lives forever. Gary taught me to understand that that soul never dies. So therefore, no one ever dies. No matter what your
Amazing.
religious belief is, we believe in souls, right? Just like your mother and you lost your twin, but you still have that soul connection to your twin. And your mother still has it with both of you, no matter whether you're all living or not.
So
And
true.
that soul is the eternal part of us that lives forever. And when we learn how to tap into our soul, not just our power, our purpose, our passion, but our real soul, and it can guide us and take us to places that we can't, that our brain won't allow us to go. And that's what I love about Gary is he matches your soul with science to where it just makes sense. And all this grief and tragedy in the world still has purpose. And there is purpose in your pain. And it became my life mission to help people understand that and share that with the world.
So deep. That's so deep. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. You've been so authentic and real, talking about all this stuff. I'm sure the listeners would agree that that's mind blowing and amazing story. Um,
Thank you.
cool. I'm got
Learned to be
goosebumps.
transparent. I learned to be transparent at 15 when I was on the radio because my entire life has been in the public eye. And I've lived and grown up in my life in front of other people. And
Yeah.
I believe that that prepared me for where we are today in this world of authenticity, where transparency becomes a currency, right? In this world of fake book and fake it till you make it, and people posing in front of fake cars that aren't even theirs to try to look like they're making money and, posing with their stupid jets and all that stuff. Like most
Yeah.
people are so turned off by that now because it's all about, are you a real person and are you authentic? Are you going to allow yourself to be vulnerable? Because there is power in vulnerability. It is not weakness.
It's
And
so true. And with our internet changing so rapidly now and AI thrown in the mix, the level of authenticity, the level of leverage that you get from authenticity is now bigger than it's ever been. If you know how to harness that authenticity and that transparency, it gives you an unfair advantage because so many people are hiding behind the barrier of automation and AI now,
yeah.
that if you're prepared to and you've got the courage to stand out and be authentic, you're going to stand out above the crowd way easier because of that, I think.
Well, it's even more urgent than people realize, Matthew, because I want you guys to think about something. And I have a lot of really amazing friends that are like way smarter than me and they're futurists. And I get to be a fly on the wall of their events sometimes. And they talk about the fact that, okay, 100 years ago, think about this, just to put it in perspective, okay, with AI, 100 years ago, our only mode of transportation was really a horse, maybe a little more, right? And look at just that one sector of transportation that has advanced all the way to space travel in just 100 years, from a horse to space travel. That took 100 years. In the next 10 years, in this world, in our lifetime, we are going to advance 100 years because of AI and technology. And so what's
Crazy.
happening is humans are feeling left behind. We're all overwhelmed. And it's creating this volatile uncertainty in our life, in our world, in our business, in our families. And we need leadership more than ever. And there's a rise of humanness that's happening during AI. I am not a big advocate of having AI go write a BS book that no one wants to read, because you lose the heart and soul of that very piece of you. And there is a way to partner with AI and do it the right way using these client conversion model formulas, the speaker platform formulas, the list builder formulas that are out there in the world to tie into your funnels and your books and your business with your storytelling. So I believe you can partner with AI to do that in a way that would be better if either one of you tried to do it on your own. But it takes a collaboration even with AI to still remain connected to that soul and the humanness of it all.
So true. I was reading this book just recently. Can't remember offhand what the book was called, but it's an AI expert that's been working in AI for over 20 years. And he did a synopsis about AI, and he said that AI is extraordinary. Like, all of our jobs are gone. Like, there's just no job that is out there that cannot be replicated by AI right now. The problem is that AI cannot replicate emotion. It can't replicate critical thinking, and it can't connect that relatedness, the human connection, right? So there's always going to be that gap missing there, because we've evolved over the millions of years. AI is only just a baby, and even if it was rapidly growing and being smarter, it's missing those components, right? And so I think that what you're saying is that if you're using AI, you need to make that book really good. You've got to bring the emotional context and the critical thinking part of that into your story to help you leverage what you're doing in your book, right? And I think that's kind of where you're going with that.
Absolutely. And there is a formula. And one of the things that I learned the hard way through all of this, I mean, this is considered a collaboration formula, right? And we've done this with multiple books. This was my first book. And then I did, SOS, stories of survival, people that have survived really crazy things in their life.
Yeah.
And then we did another, we've done lots of collaboration books. These are examples. So kind of like that chicken soup for the soul model for collaboration works great. But if you want to write a book as an expert and really become the expert authority, then I always recommend people do what's called a client conversion model formula, right?
Explain that.
And so it's critical if you want to write a book. Like, no one is crushing it with a $7 ebook, Matthew. Nobody's making millions of dollars off that, okay? Unless they have some type of offer on the back end that is higher ticket. So let me give you a quick example of math. I mean, I'm blonde, I'm over 40, I'm not good at math, but for some reason I can count money all day long. Amen? I don't know why. But let me ask you a question.
Oh, good.
If you wrote a book like this, okay, this book came out over 100 years ago. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, Dale
Yeah.
Carnegie, all these billionaires back in the day. And if you wrote a book like that in your business, do you think you could give away one book a day for free?
No,
Just
not a hard copy.
yeah.
Not,
I
not,
mean,
not for that long. It'll be expensive, right?
well, but even if you gave away one copy of a book a day, this, by the way, will cost you about $3 and you
Right.
sell it for
Right.
20 to 25. But let's
Yeah.
just say you give away one book a day. Do you think you could just give away, even if it's an ebook, just give away one copy a day to somebody somewhere in the world?
Oh,
You
right.
think you
Yes, of course you could. You'd be anywhere. Say you went to a shop or
yeah,
whatever, right? You'd say, "Oh, here's
yeah,
a book.
pub,
Give it."
soccer field, coffee plate, like one
Yeah.
book a day. Okay, I'm going to show you how by giving away one book a day, if you own a business especially, you can make 6 or 7 figures a year. This is additional revenue to what you already have. Okay, this is why business owners are like, why don't I have a book? Okay, so you just give away one book a day, and let's just say that you charge $1,000 for your service. To be conservative, most people have businesses that charge a lot more than that if they're in the service industry, like an
Yeah.
attorney or something. Let's say you only charge $1,000, okay? Because I don't like pie in the sky. You give away one copy a day.
Yeah.
In 1 year, that's 365 books you've given away.
Hmm.
With our client conversion model formula, 20 to 30% of people that read that book have found so much value in what you've taught them that they want to work with you. So even at 30%, which is conservative, that you have 365 books at 30% getting new clients. That's 109 new clients a year. At
Wow.
$1,000 each, that's $109,000 a year. by giving away a copy every day. Okay. Now, what if you gave away 3 copies a day or
Yeah.
5 copies?
Yeah.
What if you charge $3,000 or $5,000 or $10,000? If you charge $10,000 and you give away 1 book a day, you make over $1 million a year by giving that book away for free.
Insane. Those are crazy numbers, right?
N-
And you're being
Now,
conservative. You're being conservative at 1 book a day,
yeah,
$1,000 offer. Like most
yeah.
consultants or coaches have got, $2,000, $3,000 offers, even more. I know people that have got 50, 60, $100,000 offers. So it just blows up exponentially, right? All you have to do is
And
just
it's
give 1
like,
book away.
you're not going to throw this business card away. This is your business card. It is your calling card. It's like having employees work for you and you don't have to pay them a fee or a commission. They actually pay you. And
Wow.
the best part is now imagine you're the same person. You have this book, it's getting out there. You go speak on a stage and you go one to many. Do you believe that if you get on a stage, you can probably give away at least 1 book to that audience of 100 people,
So
right?
good. So easy.
You could sell the books, but what if you have an audience of, let's say you're targeting entrepreneurs, and now you've got an audience of 100 entrepreneurs, which is what I did in Vegas recently. I was in a room, which you and I know, I was on Eileen Wilder's stage, right? I spoke in a room to about 100 entrepreneurs. I did my little 3-minute story that I just shared with you about, can you give a book away a day? I've generated over $200,000 from that 3-minute talk. And I
Wow.
only had 1 book to give away for free. And everybody in there's like, can I get a copy? Right.
Goodness.
And it's insane what you can do when you start speaking one to many. So you write a book, become a best-selling author. Okay, follow me. You give your books away. You speak for free if you want to. And then you leverage those platforms as a best-selling author. And guess what happens? Journalists start saying, hey, you're the expert who wrote the book on it. Can you come and be an expert on my TV show or radio show or podcast and be a credible expert in your industry? You get hired as an expert witness in cases sometimes, depending on your industry, and paid thousands of dollars for your expertise. So everything elevates. Your speaker fee goes up, your coaching fee goes up, your demand goes up for your time. Your time is more valuable, and you're perceived as credible and having much more authority because you wrote that book. And your book gets you booked on podcasts and in the media and elevates you very quickly. The next thing you know, within a matter of months, you are now a global expert in your industry and you can create and write your ticket for what you want to charge.
Wow.
And it happens that fast.
Crazy. But the thing is, you can't just write any book, right? It just can't be a lot of words. You can't go to ChatGPT and say, write me a book, and it pumps out all the fluff that's copied from the
Nope.
internet abroad. It's got to
You
have
got it.
there is a structure. And so you have created a process, which I believe is called the Meet Me method. Sorry, my apologies.
The book me method, how your book gets you booked on
That's
the
right.
media.
The Book Me method, how your book gets you books. Excellent.
Your book gets you booked in the media, on podcasts. It gets you booked on client calls because now they see you as the authority. Again, remember how I did it all backwards. I went through my own funnel backwards and upside down, and it was painful. Like writing this book first, not
Yeah.
having an author, not being a coach, I lost a lot of money. I still made millions of dollars off of this book. And this book started everything. And
Yeah.
it's now been many years and many books later. But we've literally helped people write, oh my gosh, thousands of books all over the world, millions of people that it's impacted. My personal goal, Matthew, was to impact over 100 million people. And we did it in less than 2 years.
What?
Yes.
Yes.
And creating our people library, right? You go to a bookstore or a library and there's all these brilliant books around, but we did it with people and we curated experts in over 300 different industries.
Wow.
And now I've got the TV show that we created as a platform for our experts in health and wellness. And guess what happened? A year ago, those same experts, including our host, he even had a book and he was not charging enough. He was charging $5,000 per gig for speaking. Now he's at $100,000 a day for corporate wellness programs because of the book, the TV show, and how he's raised his brand in the last year. And it's the same guy with the same amount of knowledge. The only thing that's changed is he partnered with the media instead of working against them. And he's leveraged it all the way up to
That is so
$100,000 a day.
crazy. Wow. And it's all
Isn't that?
about, it's amazing. And it all comes from writing a book, writing a book.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Now,
And no one realizes that.
you have an incredible story. You've given us a lot of massive value and information and tips here. How would somebody, now this is one of the biggest barriers that I think for a lot of people when it comes to writing books, is that there's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of energy required. You've got to sit for months and months and months, formulate steps and formulate paragraphs and formulate all this stuff. And it, for a lot of people, it seems like they've just got, it's too hard basket, right? I'm a busy entrepreneur. I've got all this stuff going on. How am I ever going to possibly even contemplate just a minuscule thought of writing a book? What would you say to somebody like that?
I love that because I would say to you right now, we could literally take this interview and we could transcribe it and make a book out of it. You know, if you have a podcast, you have a book. If you have a presentation, a webinar, you have a book. So most of you have already created content in your business and your life. And if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be a good communicator. If you're a communicator, you're getting paid to communicate your expertise already. You're just not monetizing it. So we're not about reinventing the wheel. We're saying, let's take your knowledge, let's extract it and put it in the right formula. And we even have ghostwriters that will do that for you and write your book in 30 days and launch it to bestseller.
30 days?
Yep, 30 days. It doesn't take very long because it's just a quick interview and we're extracting the knowledge that we need to plug into the formula that works.
So you're telling me that a busy entrepreneur, somebody that's crazy busy in the day, can't even think about writing a book, can have a book in 30 days?
Yes. And the process is you work with our writers. And we do have a process where people want to learn, like we have it done with you, where people want to learn how to write their book and
Gotcha.
they do all of this. And we can still close that gap. It's about 18 minutes a day and they finish in 8 weeks.
Right.
The other process is our done for you, which we call expert mastery. And that is
Gotcha.
where we partner you with a best-selling author who's one of our writers. You interview 1 hour a week, and in 4 weeks, 4 hours of your time, your book is completely written.
Oh,
You
I
have
love
your
that.
at least you have your first draft, right? Then there's a lot of other things that we can do. There are sponsored type books, like for example, this book we made over $130,000 off the book before we wrote one word.
Wow.
And if people want to do collaboration books, we show them how to monetize them before they even write and how to sell thousands of books before they write it. So it pays for itself.
Right. So just to be clear, you have a process where somebody who's busy can go through that learning experience and do pieces of the whole puzzle, build it out. You show them how it's done. You have a framework, follow the steps. And then for people that are next level, they can just go, I've got only 4 hours. It takes four hours. Like that's not even a lot of time, right? If you think about it. And then you're going to help formulate the book. And within 30 days, you can have a bestseller.
Yes, we write the book. We do the formatting, the book design, the cover design. We do the testing. We do the marketing. We do all the category research, everything that took me years to figure out. We do all of it for you, the complete done for you package.
Wow.
We launched your book to #1 on the bestseller list, guaranteed, which we have 100% success rate, Matthew.
That is
We've
amazing.
every one of our authors that we have launched has hit #1 on the bestseller list.
You
Then,
know, sorry, Karen.
okay. And we also, we launched their book. We also build out their funnel as an author, speaker, coach so that they can use SEO to get booked in the media for people to find them easily and buy their book directly if they want to sell it versus just selling it on Amazon and sending them customers. And then we also have a really cool little thing called Speaker Camp that we invite people to where they come out to California, hang out with us for a few days, and get this. We book them on the NBC Morning Show. We film their professional speaker reel, right?
Right.
We actually create their whole media kit for them and all this materials. And we do professional headshots and photographs of them speaking on stage. And we train our authors how to be speakers, and we train our speakers how to write books, and we show all of them how to become a coach or a mentor. So now they had multiple generations of income.
Wow. That is so much value. I'm blown away. So let's take a little bit of a step back. I I see I see so many people around that want to do everything themselves, right? They want to, oh, I'm the entrepreneur. I'm going to struggle through this thing. I'm going to try and figure it out. And so they spend months winding around with stories in their head, backwards and forwards, procrastination, this and finding time here and this is when things never happen. And I'm always under the opinion, because I've done this for most of my life, most of my last 10 years as an entrepreneur, is that I've realized is that if you want to get something done quickly, work with people that can help you get it done quickly. Because there's experts, there's professionals out there that can do this stuff faster, better, quicker, and you get the result that you want. And so much less thinking. Like, I just love this idea that you can create a book, right? You talked about how valuable this book is. And I'm sold on the idea of creating a book, but not only that, I can get a book with you, but that book is done in such a short period of time. If I'm just prepared to invest in that, to get it done, right? Like it's just, for me right now, standing here listening to all of this, it's like, it's a no-brainer, right? It's just a no-brainer, because I know, we all know, everybody knows, we've seen the value and the power of the book. Everybody from Dale Carnegie to, even Tony Robbins, everybody talks about the power and the value of a book. And so as an entrepreneur, you'd be amiss to not be wanting to get a book in your
And
repertoire, right?
hey, can I
To
tell
have
you
it
a
done,
secret? Can
to
I tell
have
you?
it done by you guys so quickly, like that's just stupid amazing.
And the funny thing is, a big secret in the industry is that most people don't write their own books anyways. Almost every famous person you know has had a ghostwriter. They don't talk about it. And so it's literally even major people with major publishing companies. Like I'll just say my mentors didn't write a lot of their own books. The Chicken
Yeah.
Soup for the Soul guys, they weren't great writers, and they'll tell you, they'll admit it. Jack and Mark will tell you they were not good writers. Robert Kiyosaki, not a great writer, but it still has their voice and their essence and their soul in it and the intention behind their words, even though other people wrote a lot of their books.
So good. So good. You don't even have to write your own book. I'm sold. I love
No.
this.
Yeah. You don't even, and you can make money. The other myth is you can make money off your book before you even write one work. We have a client from Israel. English is her second language. She made $64,000 in 48 hours before she wrote one word, just from doing a collaboration book with people who wanted to also write a book or
Spreading the
create this.
word.
Yeah. So it was like a Chicken Soup for the Soul model, but they committed to so many books in advance to be part of that as a collaboration. So there's a whole model and formula for that as well that we really spell out and give people, like the scripts, the templates, everything, depending on here's what kind of book you want to create, here's who you want to help. We start by defining the who. And I will tell you, years ago, when I was 18, I started my very first business as an entrepreneur. I had an amazing mentor, and he always said, listen to the people who have what you want. And my entire life has been following mentors because they will save you decades. And a mentor is worth 1,000 coaches. They will take you under their wing. They will take you by the hand and show you everything you need to do, or do it for you. And every time I followed that advice, I've had success. The minute I go out and try to reinvent the wheel, I fall flat on my face every time. So
Too true.
this is
Too
no
true.
different.
Yeah, man. Too true. So good, Melanie. So good. Thank you so much for sharing. How would somebody like, if you were going to give somebody advice on getting started with a book, what would that advice be? Like, what would be the very first starting points, of, like, I'm sitting at home and I'm listening to this and I'm going, I want to write a book now. What would be how would I go about doing it?
Great question, Matthew. I would say the most important thing is think of who. Who are you writing this book for? Because you've got to write the book people want to read, not just the book you want to write.
Mm.
That's why this is so transformational, because like people want to come and write their own life story, but then it's not about the reader. You still have to bring that reader into that journey with you. So if you're writing a how-to book, they're so popular and there's never enough content out there. There are people making thousands of dollars a month teaching seniors how to do yoga, right? Like it's crazy
Yeah.
when you really
Yes.
break it down,
Yes.
especially in the how-to categories of life, health, and relationships and wealth. Those are the areas that people want to learn more about, and they're willing to invest in support or learning how to do something there. So you've got your business to consumer books, you've got your B2B books, you've got your business to enterprise, your business to government. There's different ways of doing business with people. So start with the who. Who do you want to help? What problem do you want to solve? And then start thinking about your outline of what are the steps that it would take to get somebody from their hell to their heaven, right? Here, they're on this hell island and they want to get to heaven without dying. What is that process? And what do
Yeah.
those steps look like? Identify those steps, and guess what happens? Those steps become the outline, the chapters in your book.
Ah,
And guess what else? They become the modules in your course.
wow.
And and then when you are being a mentor or a coach, you're taking somebody by the hand and you're just walking them through the steps of the process and you're coaching within those gaps. Now you're going to charge more for your time. It's the same steps, the same system, the same information that you already have in your head.
Wait a minute. So you've got a whole story, you've got a book, and within that book, you've got all these sections and chapters, which are the steps of your the program or whatever that you're writing. And then you have a full program, which is your book, which you can kind of break out into a coaching program or a service-based business, whatever. And then within that book, you have all these little pieces that you can use to create different things as well, just from
It's
this
the
one.
same content. You're just
Wow,
repurposing it as different income streams. Isn't that brilliant? And it's so
so good.
simple to do. We make things so complicated because we're all humans and we have brains and we think we're so smart, but then we sabotage ourselves out of fear and imposter syndrome and who am I to write a book? And I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't have time. All these things that are limited beliefs because it's already in us. And just like my favorite quote from Think and Grow Rich, okay, that more gold has been mined from the thoughts of man than has ever been taken from the earth. Think about that.
Yeah,
We have gold in between our ears here, in our brains, in our experience of life. Your experience is your expertise. You
yeah,
don't need a life. You don't need a degree. You just need to go share it with people. And that gold doesn't just pop out of the earth. It is extracted, sometimes by force, sometimes by discovery. So when you have a collaboration and people that are in that same like-minded value system and hierarchy of like being a thought leader, and we extract that knowledge from you and put it into that formula, that's what creates this exponential growth so quickly for people. That, and then putting you on a platform, one to many, to now get that clear message out to millions of people. But if you don't have the clarity of your message and that mission created first, then you're doing it backwards. And that's
yeah.
the biggest mistake. People think, I just need a bigger platform. I have a visibility issue, but they have a conversion issue. They don't have a clear idea and a clear concept, and they don't start with the who.
That's amazing, and that's so true. The message is always the most important, right? Who you serve and who you don't serve. But I always say now,
How you help them.
and how
That
you
that
yes, of course, and how you help him because it's the process. Amazing stuff. Got so much food for thought, and we're running a little bit over time here. So it's been an amazing conversation. I really loved listening to every bit. I've been absorbing it like a sponge.
Thank
Lots of good, valuable tips. Really a lot of food for thought. So if you could, please share with the listeners how they can connect with you.
I would love to give all of your listeners a special gift, which is free training and a couple of free resources. We do a free demo to show people exactly how to do this. So if you want, you can click the link. However you're seeing this interview, there's a link below that will take you there. Or you can also go to our website, mydefiningmoments.com, moments with an S, mydefiningmoments.com. And you can fill out an application to work with us. And that will get you in our stratosphere so that we're aware of you. We want to know more about your ideas, your book, and then we can book a call with somebody in our team to kind of go through what your goals are and give you this whole map of what you need to do, plus additional resources for free that you can use to immediately get more clarity before you start doing anything.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I would appreciate that. Guys, we'll stick that in the link below wherever this podcast is being streamed. Melanie, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege speaking to you today. I've gained a lot of knowledge from you from this session. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. Thank you so much. I
You have
appreciate
an
you.
amazing day going forward, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Take care.